Let's bring in Reggie Bush, who's kind of new to us at Fox. Great to have him on, the 11-year NFL Super Bowl champ. 5 Saints, 2 Dolphins, then a couple other NFL years. Let's talk about, so I said this about Mike McCarthy. Every coach has DNA.
Yep.
Okay, like every player. Every player's got certain things they do and they don't. And like Andy Reid always says, I watch a player and I say, here's what he can do, here's what he can't, and I build my system toward him.
Yeah.
Every coach has DNA. Here's my concern about Mike McCarthy. He does not. He moves the minute the running game struggles. He's out.
Gone.
He just does not. And I'm like, okay, this is an older veteran run-blocking O-line and Zeke. Does that concern you at all?
That's the biggest question. Is he going to be able to be patient enough in the run game? Is he going to be able to hand the football off to Zeke 20, 25 times? Because that is the first requirement when you sign up for the Dallas Cowboys head coaching job. You have to be able to turn around and hand that football off to Zeke. That's not in his DNA from what we've seen in Green Bay. I also don't think the same system that he ran in Green Bay will work in Dallas.
How come?
Because it's not a pocket passers league anymore. The top 5 quarterbacks from this past season, Jameis Winston, Dak Prescott, Phillip Rivers, Jared Goff, Matt Ryan, pocket passer quarterbacks with the exception of Dak Prescott. All those quarterbacks are sitting at home, every single one of them. And so padding those stats as a QB the way it used to be when he won the Super Bowl, that doesn't directly translate to wins anymore. That's not how teams are winning games anymore. You talked about the young quarterbacks that you like to watch now.
Right.
Deshaun Watson. They win that game because his ability to be able to scramble and extend plays with his legs. Same thing with Seattle. Same thing with other teams. And then Mike McCarthy leaves Green Bay. His last 4 years in Green Bay, I think it was 11, 16, and 1. So he struggled with one of the best quarterbacks, arguably, to ever play this game. What happens to Green Bay the next year after he leaves? They got the number 1 seed, and they're 13-3. And so, to me, Mike McCarthy has to reinvent himself this time around. He cannot. The same offense that worked and won him a Super Bowl is also the same offense that got him fired in Green Bay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's a bad hire. He doesn't. There doesn't feel like there's a lot of juice to it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some things he does well, but I do think coaches. Pete Carroll.
Mm-hmm.
Pete Carroll. It's. Defenses are aggressive, and they run the ball.
The football.
Marshawn Lynch left. They still try to run the football. That's his DNA. You had Sean Payton.
Yes.
What was Sean's DNA there?
So when Sean first got to New Orleans, he was not a run-the-football type coach. He wanted to throw the football a lot.
Because Drew Brees was in his prime.
Exactly. Because Drew was in his prime, and he could throw it well a lot. And we were throwing the ball around 35-plus times a game.
Yeah.
We won the Super Bowl because we ran the football well on top of having Drew Brees, and our defense played well. When Mike McCarthy won the Super Bowl, he had the number 2 scoring defense in the NFL. Ever since then, he hasn't had a top 10 defense, right? And you also mentioned the run game. He hasn't had a top 10 run game, I don't think, at all.
Yeah, he had. By the way, Aaron Jones also was with Mike McCarthy, and they just didn't develop it.
And look what he's doing right now.
Yeah. So no, I think these are real concerns. Yeah. I do think coaches. It's like broadcasters, running backs, players. We all have certain DNA or comfort levels, and we tend to go back to it.
Always.
This is,
Always.
I mean, Andy Reid loves quarterbacks, loves developing passing games.
Yeah.
But Andy has struggled through his life to create great run games, and then Andy's a great coach, but that's his DNA.
Mm-hmm. And listen, Dak Prescott played well this year. He was a number 2 rated passer
total
this year.
yards, yeah.
Total yards. He was a number 2 passer. So he played well this year, probably the best he's ever played. And look where it got them. It didn't translate to the win.
Okay, so Matt Rhule goes to Temple overnight. They're like 2-10. 2 years later, they're 10-2.
Yeah.
Baylor was a grease fire as a athletic department. 1-11 to 11-1 2 years later. Super bright, a year in the NFL, but he's never coached in the National Football League. Now, I will say this, Reggie. The trend now in the NFL, we saw it with Gruden and Kyle Shanahan. He got a 6-year, 7-year deal.
Years.
It's $70 million. So whether you like him or not as a player, he walks in with all the power. You don't like him, you're cut.
Exactly.
I think that's why it's going to work.
And his first order of business, which I believe could make or break his career before it even starts, is to either keep Cam Newton or to move on from Cam Newton. And that's big because you have to get that position right? That quarterback head coach relationship is so important to winning football games, and you have to get that one right off the back. And so let's say he gets rid of Cam Newton, because I don't believe in Allen. What's his first
Josh
name?
Allen.
Kyle Allen. I think it's Kyle Allen.
My bad. Kyle Allen.
I don't believe – I'm not 100% sold yet on Kyle Allen.
No, he's a transition piece.
And so if you get rid of Cam Newton and then you're scrambling for the next couple years, well, your career was over before it even started.
Yeah.
So he's got some big-time decisions to make early in his career before it even gets started. Same thing with Mike McCarthy. He's walking into a situation where they got to sign Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
Have to give him what he wants, and if they give him what he wants, that's Amari Cooper's gone. So now you're losing weapons on the receiver side. And, it's going to be tough, man. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, but it's going to be tough if they don't get those right off the bat.
Yeah, my guess on Matt Rhule, who I think is going to work, and I think this is a real trend.
I like Matt Rhule.
It's a real trend. I mean, he is this is who the Giants wanted. Then he got hired by Carolina because Carolina's got this new he's got this new owner.
Yeah.
He's not part of the old boys club, and he's doing things his way.
A little different.
So this is what we see now. San Francisco gave Shanahan and Lynch 6 years. Yeah. Gruden got 10. Matt Rhule gets 7. So whereas the NBA tends to empower the player, the trend in the NFL is empower the coach.
Yep.
Don't bail on him. I think Cleveland, to get Josh McDaniels, would have to offer him 6 years. Then I think it has a chance to work.
That's a long time for an unproven coach at this level. 7 years? Like, we just bypassing the 4 years, and we're going to try to figure out and see, if this really is going to work, this marriage is going to work.
Let me argue on this. If it doesn't work, billionaires can just write a check.
Yeah.
But you have to send the message to players, he's the guy.
Yeah.
Because if you look at every coach that's working in the NFL, Shanahan's been empowered. Belichick's empowered. Sean Payton's empowered. John Harbaugh got a new deal empowered.
Yep.
It's not because remember these organizations are all owned by billionaires who can write a $40 million check. It's a rounding error.
Right.
But you got to send the message in the NFL. Okay. The locker room is owned by the coach. And so I actually like what Carolina did. Because if you had a young college coach with a 4-year deal, bad first year, Reggie, that second training camp, guys like Cam Newton are out on him.
I get that, and I understand that. But as a player, I'm saying, okay, let's pump our brakes for a second. Let's see if this is going to work out the way we want it to. 7 years is just a long time to be locked in for somebody who is not proven in this league, who hasn't won games in this league. I love what he did at the college level, but the NFL is different. This is not Temple, and this is not Baylor.
They're not on the schedule.
No.
Texas Tech is not on Carolina's schedule.
At all.
But Matt Ryan is
You got to see the Saints twice a year.
And Atlanta. Okay. Reggie Bush is joining me. I want to talk about two things. Let me talk about Tua for a second.
Okay.
I am a big believer. So is it Monday night's the national championship?
Yeah.
Clemson, LSU. I like Clemson. I'm not going to ask you, are you broadcasting? Are you doing a pre or post game show for that or anything?
No.
Okay, so you can tell me, who do you like?
Yes, I like LSU.
Okay, here's what I worry about. So Tua goes from high school. He goes to Alabama. He's on the bench. The first time they ask him to play is against Georgia in the national championship. 25 NFL guys, the most pressure in the world. Halftime, he's trailing. He comes in and takes the game over as an 18-year-old.
It's remarkable.
Joe Burrow had no success until everything lined up this year. He got the right coach. He got the right schedule. Last year, he had a 4-game stretch with LSU's talent with no touchdowns.
Yeah.
Here's what I worry about. Tua is a special, all-time transformative talent. Joe Burrow is older than Lamar Jackson. He's a 5th-year senior. Finally, when it all lines up for him, he wins. Doesn't it concern you if you're drafting either? One guy came in as a high school kid into a pressurized situation. It was not ideal. It was Georgia, national title, trailing, win the game for us. That's why I think we're going nuts on Burrow here.
Yeah, I think for Tua, obviously, I think everything you said is spot on. I think The only thing that would hold people back about Tua is his injury.
Right.
If Tua never got injured, he'd be the number 1 draft pick right now.
By a mile.
Without question. He has the fastest release of any quarterback in college football right now. That ball is in and out of his hands in 2 seconds.
And accurate.
At a max. And very accurate. And so I do believe Tua is the better quarterback. But right now, Joe Burrow is just the hottest, right? And this offense that he's running is a New Orleans Saints offense. That's exactly the same offense that we won a Super Bowl with. It's the same offense that they run right now in New Orleans.
Is it complex? What is it?
It's complex, and he's making NFL-type throws. I've watched Joe Burrow all season long. It's not just about he's finding the open he's finding the receivers, but he's also putting that ball. Look at this. I mean, the separation of some of these receivers, the passes that he's making are tight windows, and he's putting that football in places where only his receivers can catch it. In the last playoff game where they beat Oklahoma, 2 of the touchdowns that he had in the first half were back shoulder throws, great coverage by the defense, but he put that ball in places where only his receivers could catch the football. And I think that's the thing I'm most impressed about is just his ability to be able to throw guys open, because there's a difference between throwing to an open receiver and then throwing your receiver open. And that's one of the reasons why he's been successful up until this point. And that's why they're so dangerous, because the receivers can run, he can extend plays with his legs, and he's finding the open receivers, and he's putting that football in places where only his receivers can catch it.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.